Hey folks, Ben the Bondsman here. So, to start this series out, I wanted to give you guys a little bit of my history and what brings me to the point I'm at today. Alright, I started out in the bonding business back when I was about 17 years old, and I was riding along with a bondsman, a bounty hunter. There is a difference between a bondsman and a bounty hunter, but it's only a difference in job and title. The bondsman is the person that gets somebody out of jail. The bounty hunter is the person that goes and finds them once they've missed court. Most bondsmen will do their own bounty hunting. That's what I do. I don't hire people unless I have to, because I'm in other states where I have to have a local agent. Locally, I do all my own bounty hunting. Anyway, I started out with a guy named Ken, and I would ride with him and go on bounties, and he taught me a lot of stuff, a whole lot of stuff. Well, I didn't actually get licensed as a bondsman until I was 21, because you can't hold a license in Mississippi till you're 21. But back when I got started at 17, there was a license to bounty hunt, but it was not enforced or required. Freelance bounty hunting was very, very frequent, and I'm glad that now licenses are required, because it keeps a lot of the riffraff out, a lot of the fly-by-night guys out, and there's been some laws established making it specifically illegal to participate in the bonding business without a license. Matter of fact, you can't even be a secretary in a bonding office answering phones unless you would legally qualify for a license. In other words, no felons, no underage people, nobody with domestic violence convictions, and I think DUI convictions now. So they've really tightened the reins down in Mississippi, but we're still one of the more relaxed states when it comes to regulations than a lot of states. A lot of states, or some states, you can't even wear a badge. You can't wear anything that identifies you as an enforcement agent. Well, I got started with this guy Ken. We were both working. We were installing DirecTV satellites, and one day we got to talking, and he said, "Yeah, I do a little bit of bounty hunting on the side." And I was like, "Oh man, that's cool. I'd kind of like to ride with you sometime." So I did, and rode with him all the time, and we actually went from being satellite guys to bounty hunting full time, because we were making some pretty decent money back then. So that rocked on for a couple years, and I went to work for a company, my very first company, where they hired me to be their bounty hunter, but then they needed somebody to write bonds. So I went ahead and got my license and was doing both. Now, I can tell you from experience, there's a much better living in writing bonds than there is bounty hunting. Even though you get a bigger piece of the pie when you do the bounty hunting, there's a whole lot less pies going around. So I started making the majority of my living writing bonds, but still doing the bounty hunting on the side. Well, I worked for that company for a few years, and I had kind of gotten out of it for about a year. I let my license go, and I was just burnt out because the bonding business is very demanding. It's demanding on your time, on your family, on, you don't get to go to work, punch in at 9 o'clock, punch out at 5 o'clock, go home. You're a slave to your phone, and you have to be available when the call comes in to go get somebody out or to go follow up on a tip on a bounty. You don't get to choose when that phone rings. So I can remember once my wife and I hadn't been married maybe 2 months. We sit down at O'Charlie's and order our food. Our appetizers come out. My phone rings. It's one of my agents. He says, "Hey man, I got a hit on so-and-so, but we need to go now." Well, I look at my new wife and say, "Honey, I'm sorry, I have to go." Now, I'm very fortunate in that regard, because a lot of wives might have said, "Oh no, you are not choosing that over me. That can wait." My wife simply looked at me and said, "Please be careful. I love you." And my partner came and scooped me up, and we were gone. And as we go through this series, I'll tell little stories like that of what it really is to be a bondsman and a bounty hunter. There's really nothing glamorous about it. Anyway, I worked for that company for a few years and got out of it. And I got a phone call. Well, I had trained an agent while I was working for that company that had splintered off on his own. And he calls me. He says, "Hey, Ben, what you doing?" I said, "Not bonding." And he said, "Oh, come on now." I said, "Nope, not interested in what you got to sell." He said, "Look, I got these 3 files here for you. I just need you to look at them. I don't have time. I'm just asking you to look at them. If you can do something, fine. If you can't, fine." I said, "All right, I'll meet you." So we went and met. In the bonding business, you do a lot of meeting at Waffle Houses and McDonald's and stuff. There's offices, but they're usually way out of the way. So we met at McDonald's and we sat down, and I said, "This is it, man. I'll help you with these 3, but man, I'm out. I'm done. I'm finished. I'm not interested in being a bondsman." He said, "That's cool. I understand. I just need your help with these." So I worked them, and I closed them pretty quick. I think within a day or two, they were all those files were done. One guy was already sitting in jail. Another guy there was a warrant out for him, but he went to court and got the warrant resolved by himself. And I found that out through the courts, and the other guy I had to go get. So I call him up and say, "Hey, I'm done with your files." He came and he paid me, and turned out that he knew that the one guy that I had the warrant on was done. He was finished with his court. He wanted to see what my integrity was like. And after I found that out, yeah, it ticked me off a little bit, but the reality of it is me and this dude never broke bread. He really didn't know me. He just knew what the few things I showed him in the bonding business and before he went out on his own. So I kind of understood it. Well, anyway, he was like, "Look, man, that was easy money. Why don't you take care of these warrants for me too?" And I'm like, "You know what? Fine. If I'm gonna be doing this, I'm gonna transfer my license over to your company, because you have to be an agent. your license has to have a professional agent, a company owner's name on it. You can't just, it's not like a driver's license where you go get the driver's license. You have to be sponsored by somebody. So I got my license transferred over to him, and you know, it went from I was picking up files here and there to hey, can you go write this bond? I'm tied up, to hey, can you cover the calls this weekend? Till one day he called me up. He said, hey man, I'm gonna be tied up for a while. You got it. It's yours. I'm like, all right. Well, by this time I was back in it. You know, there was no getting around that. I was a bondsman again, and I had left my little minimum wage job to get back into the bonding business, and you know, I got sucked back into it, which is cool, you know, because if not, I wouldn't be where I'm at today, which is a broke bondsman. But that's a whole nother story. It hadn't always been that way. So for the next 3 years, I'm running and managing this guy's company. He was full-time military, didn't really have a lot of spare time, so his involvement in the company was really very minimal, and I liked it that way, and he liked it that way, because I don't like to be micromanaged. If you're going to ask me to be in charge of something, then put me in charge and get out of my way. Trust me, I'm going to do what I do. And he knew that, and he had a lot of confidence in me, and a lot of trust. It takes a lot of trust to put somebody in that position, and I'm grateful to him for that. And his company taught me a lot. Running his company taught me a lot. I made a lot of mistakes on his back, and he knew it. The difference is I didn't make mistakes and then try to hide them. I would call before he found out and say, hey bro, I messed up. And he'd laugh. What'd you do this time? And I'd tell him, and he'd say, yeah, I know you'll fix it. Because I never wanted him to be surprised. I never wanted him to find out that this happened and I didn't bother picking up the phone and calling him. So we had a really good open line of communications, which is really important in this line of work, because you don't want your professional agent to find out that you had to kick in somebody's door and oops, it was the wrong house. You know, aside from the criminal and civil actions that can be taken against the agent that did it, the company can also be sued. Now, I never did that, but I have messed up, and maybe I'll get to some of that, maybe I won't. You know, some things are just better left untold. But so that's how I wound up where I'm at. After I managed his company for about three and a half years, I decided, you know, I think I know the ropes. It's time for me to go out on my own and start my own company. And I went to him because we had a great relationship, and I said, hey man, you know, I've got the money to open my own company. I have no issues with where I'm at now. Matter of fact, I enjoy where I'm at now. But you know, I wasn't really looking for permission, but me and this guy had a great relationship. You know, I didn't want it to seem like I was stepping out on him. And he was like, no man, that's what you know, being a businessman is all about. You do your thing and we'll still work together. And we have on a limited basis, but the fact of the matter is we're two different companies in the same industry, and for all intents and purposes we're competition, you know. I actually ran his company. I managed his office for the first probably 6 months that I was trying to start mine, after I had mine open, trying to get it off the ground, and finally it just got to be too much. So the video's getting to be about 15 minutes here, so I'm gonna wrap this up. Anyway, that's my story on how I wound up owning a bonding company, and I'll get into some other things in later videos, how to what it takes to get licensed, and what it takes to be in the business. It takes a different kind of person to be in this business. Yeah, just anybody can go get a license. Just anybody can apply for the job. But your average agent has about a 1 to 2 year shelf life in this business. People don't last long because they can't make it through the tough times, and there's a lot of tough times in this line of work. Anyway, that's all for now. Ben the Bondsman signing out. Let me know if you have any questions.